We are all connected to the ocean. It's been there for us for millions of years. Some of us grew up wondering what it might be like to live under the sea. We were shown movies of whales that can connect to humans and escape danger. We were shown cartoon fish that can work with other animals to save each other. It was portrayed as this truly magical place. That's because it is. Just below the ocean waters is a world teeming with wildlife and mysterious beauty. The ocean contains such beauty due to one very small animal: coral.
So my name is Joe Townsend. I'm the Coral Disease Response Coordinator for the U.S. Virgin Islands. Coral is, it's an animal. It's the size of your pinky fingernail. And collectively, with time, it can create structures that we can look at, that we can see from space. I mean, think about that. That's so cool.
So I will often describe corals as picturing a whole bunch of jellyfish stuck upside down next to each other on a rock. We have a good concept of what jellyfish are, right? They've got stinging tentacles, they've got a mouth. And that's what corals are, but because they're stationary, we tend to think of them more as just rocks. But they really are animals, and they're hundreds or thousands of animals all living together colonially.
Coral is an animal, and it takes on plant-like characteristics that might sound familiar.
Just like the plants that we know on land, they take in that sunlight, they produce sugar, they produce energy. Coral can then take that sugar and energy, it can digest it, and then it can turn that back around, turn that energy into pulling in and making rock. This is where we see corals that are the size of a car, that have created this rock, and they turn it into one of the most abundant ecosystems on the planet.
Coral on its own is small and mighty. Working in harmony with its surroundings, it plays a very important role in the ecosystem known as a coral reef.
So my name is Sonora Myling. I'm the Marine Disease Specialist at the University of the Virgin Islands. A lot of people are familiar with rainforests and how they're important to the environment and how there's so much diversity within the rainforest. So there's frogs, bugs, birds, animals, trees, and all of them work together and they all help each other with this big cycle. This is the same that's true for coral reefs. Whenever you think coral reefs, there's the sea slugs and the nudibranchs and the crabs and the snails and the coral and the fish that all work together to create this system.
Coral play a pivotal role in how we live, what we eat, and where we vacation. Those living in coastal communities rely on its powerful capabilities for their everyday livelihood.
We are a coral reef risen out the ocean, really. It's what protects us, it's what feeds us, it's what provides our economy, and it's also what provides that joy and that intrinsic value that a lot of Turks and Caicos Islanders feel connected to the oceans in that way.
Physically, they create a barrier. They actually provide shoreline protection. So for instance, the beach behind me wouldn't exist without the wave baffling that happens because of the coral reefs under the water offshore.
So a majority of the world's population, as you probably know, live within the tropical, subtropical belt. And a lot of people rely on the food, the fish, and things that come off of a coral reef for their daily sustenance. So a coral reef is really important, not just from the standpoint of the fact that it's a living animal, then creates these geological structures, these limestone structures, that then are the base of the food chain that creates this really dynamic system that people depend on.
Corals not only provide incredible habitat to things that live in the water, but they are really important for us as humans. There's a huge number of the community that rely pretty much directly on corals to survive. So whether that's through their recreational tourism, either via diving or via fishing, coral reef provides the life to support those industries. The value of coral reefs worldwide has been estimated at $9.9 trillion, which is an immense testament to how important they are to us.
A beautiful animal like coral are not immune to everyday stressors put on them. Much like humans, corals do get stressed, sick, and unfortunately die. The current state of our coral reefs is one to pay attention to, as we don't know what the future brings.
Coral reefs around the world are in growing danger.
To death by 1,000 cuts.
Current state of coral reef is pretty dire.
Can anything be done to save some of our country's most beautiful beaches?
We're down to less than 2%.
My name is Brian Walker. I'm a research scientist at Southeastern University. The current state of the coral in South Florida is in a dire state at the moment. We've just come through a pretty large, impactful disease event where we've lost arguably millions of corals on the reef in the past 5-6 years. I've been here 20 years, and so over the years I've seen a steady decline, but that decline has really only happened in the last 5 years. We saw most of the period of my research here, it's been very steady state, and then the last 5 years with the disease, it has declined a lot.
When we talk about Florida's coral reefs, that's 96,000 acres. Think about how vast that is. And we're down to less than 2%. If we let that sink in for a second, that has just, there is no other word. It's dire. We are in a dire state.
In 2014, a team of divers that I work with noted a condition that they had previously not seen on corals before. I went out and dove with my team. I was sickened when I jumped in the water, and what basically I found was that almost 50% of the coral community below me was either recently dead or was currently infected with this strange disease that had these white dead sections of sloughing coral tissue from an otherwise healthy looking coral. It was scary, and I immediately contacted every friend that I knew who did coral disease research in South Florida and sent them a PowerPoint of what I had witnessed that day and said that this was one of the most disconcerting things I've ever seen in my life. And if you see something like this at your research area or at your study site, please let me know, because if this is contagious and it's spreading, it could be catastrophic.
Stony coral tissue loss disease first appeared off of the coast of Miami in 2014. Disease is a natural part of any ecosystem, and initially people just thought this was sort of a small disease flare-up like we've seen with coral reefs in the past. But it relatively quickly became apparent that this was unprecedented in terms of how long it's been around, how widespread it has been, and also how many species it impacts and how devastating those impacts are to susceptible species. We have about 45 species of corals in Florida, and over half of those are impacted by stony coral tissue loss disease.
It's a disease that starts off in one point or multiple points, and then it slowly spreads over the coral, killing the entire colony. Coral can take hundreds of years to grow, and then it's dead in a week.
We still don't know what the cause of stony coral tissue loss disease is. It's very hard to diagnose coral diseases. There are diseases that have been around since the 1970s that we still don't know what the cause is. And that's the case for stony coral tissue loss disease as well. But there are a lot of people working really hard to try to figure out what is causing this and what we might be able to do about it as a result.
It is still not known what stony coral tissue loss disease is. We may never know. The loss of so many coral has made the possibility of global extinction a reality. A life without coral may exist one day, which raises the question of what will the world look like?
To lose our coral reefs, it would have drastic impact. We lose our fish species. We lose starfish, turtles, sharks. They're all working together. So if you take away the building blocks for this life, then you're going to interfere with the balance of the ecosystem.
We'd have much less ability, especially for poor countries, to have sustenance fishing for their population, which could alter global food systems.
If the structural integrity of the reef is to be compromised at all, we're going to start losing our coastal protection, and I don't even want to think about what a Category 5 hurricane would do if we didn't have the barrier reef to protect this island.
Polar ice caps are melting. The forests are on fire. Corals and diseases, it's just another aspect of this gigantic problem that we have to make steps towards dealing with more quickly than we are.
With so much at stake and ecosystems screaming for help, the decline of our natural resources continues. There's not a single person or organization to point fingers at. We are all responsible. Stony coral tissue loss disease is a sign. It's a sign that our way of life, it's not balanced with nature. Some people have made it their life missions to save the oceans. We are lucky to have them on our side, fighting a quiet and thankless fight.
The days of me sitting in awe of the ocean, they're over. We literally have to dive in and do something to fix it. My name is Lanita Fix. I am the executive director of the Reef Institute in West Palm Beach, Florida. So in 2016, as government officials, as scientists were staring down the barrel of the reef track in Florida specifically that was only at about 5 to 6% when this disease was discovered, everyone needed to take a step back, ask a question of, so what can we do? That's where the Florida Coral Rescue and Propagation Project was born.
In a Noah's Ark attempt to save the coral reef, federal, local, and nonprofit organizations began to team up to pull healthy coral out of the ocean and place them in holding facilities across the country.
An arm of the rescue project goes out and rescues corals. They bring them into these facilities. Let's just get them out of the ocean and let's put them someplace safe.
As coral were being pulled from the ocean, other organizations began to look at additional response options to help aid the sick coral reef.
When we realized that stony coral tissue loss disease was not going away, that this was a bigger problem than just a small flare-up, there was a real push by our government agencies, by our scientists, by the people who are involved in Florida's coral reef to see if there was something we could do about it. Is there something we can do to stop the death of some of the biggest, oldest animals in Florida, if not the world? We tried things like amputating the diseased area, creating like a fire break between diseased tissue and healthy tissue, and none of this was working. We had sent some fragments of pillar coral up to some colleagues with NOAA in South Carolina, and they were able to stop stony coral tissue loss disease progression by putting antibiotics into the aquariums that these corals were being held in. And so that was really effective, and that was sort of our first clue that we could maybe use human medicine, use antibiotics to help these animals as well. A group called Ocean Alchemists came up with this product that we were able to mix amoxicillin into and go out into the field and apply this to sick corals. I think of it a lot of just like an antibiotic that you might put on a cut.
The creation of the amoxicillin paste quickly became the staple treatment method in Florida and across the Caribbean. Applying the treatment to millions of corals requires the efforts of scientists, volunteers, and even locals. Expeditions are still being ran today in Florida and the Caribbean to help treat diseased corals.
because Karen Neely in Florida was using amoxicillin to treat, and it worked, we went up to Florida, and they were trained by Karen Neely and the group up there. We blend the amoxicillin with a proprietary carrier. You mix it up, and you'll load this into caulk guns, an empty caulk gun cartridge with this. To date, we have done 470 dives, and we treated approximately 10,000 corals. This is my home. When I look out on that ocean, I see endless entertainment and interests. It's never dull or boring, ever. I am a firm believer that people will protect what they love. And I think that we all that are in this industry need to be sure to do everything they can to engender that.
You have to get back in the water?
I feel compelled to do something about it. There's nothing else that I could be doing right now. There's no alternative in my mind.
Now we're saving hundreds of corals a day, and we're keeping them alive. It's not a cure, it's just a way that we can slow down the spread. It does really help to surround yourself with people who are all in this together, trying to fight against this lethal threat.
Other nations in the Caribbean have taken advantage of technology. Cryopreservation is now being practiced to save the rapidly declining reef.
Coral reproduction is a really interesting event. They will produce eggs and sperm and form packets that they put into their mouths. And then all at the same time, the same species will release those packets in what's called a mass spawning event. And the eggs have lipids in them, and so they basically will very slowly rise to the surface of the ocean. We go out on certain nights during the summer. We use special collecting nets to collect these gametes. Once we collect the eggs and sperm, we will then bring them into the cryopreservation lab, and we will choose what the best ones are. We use a very simple system. It's a thermos where we put in the liquid nitrogen. And then we have a container that has a bunch of what's called cryo vials. So these are special plastic vials that can withstand really low temperatures. And then we put the cryoprotectant and the sperm into these vials. Basically put that whole container with the vials into the thermos, and then basically the liquid nitrogen does its job of freezing. We're following a population of brain coral, and it had 9 colonies, I think. We had collected sperm from all 9 colonies, and we have them in our sperm bank. With this disease, 7 of those colonies have died, so we only have 2 in the wild, but they're all still alive, theoretically, right? Because we have the sperm in our sperm bank. So at some point, we're going to thaw some of those samples and use them to cross and make new crosses. So they'll still be able to help in restoring their populations, even though the actual colony is dead.
As the fight continues across the Caribbean, the future is bright. The understanding to save the ocean has expanded beyond the scientific community. It has gone viral. The future of our oceans relies on the next generation. Education today means a healthy ocean tomorrow.
My name is Jessica Harvey. I am the co-chair of the Guy Harvey Ocean Foundation. Educating the youth on the ocean is really important because without it, we wouldn't survive. We have a lot of work to do to be able to turn this around. There's a lot of hope in the technology that we have today, a lot of hope in the science that we have today, a lot of hope in the fact that people are listening, especially the youth. If you don't educate the young generation now, it then doesn't become a part of habit to consider their daily habits. If you're instilling in them at the early age that the natural environment is something that we need to look after, they will take that on in the decision making going forward. Just as it's important to engage in the younger generation, it's equally important to engage families. And when you think about when you were 10, 11, 12, you know, you're already having to manage so many things in terms of what you'd like to do, trying to figure out who you are, trying to figure out the social environment and networking and making friends, and to put the fact that the survival of our planet rests in their hands is not fair. We're also engaging families because parents, teachers, policymakers, they all have a responsibility to do their best to support those kids. As long as we are standing and have a sound mind, we have a responsibility to try and, when we pass that baton, say, we have done everything we can to help you because your chapter is going to be difficult as it is.
Saving the ocean is a daunting task. It can feel like sometimes no progress is being made. For us at home, the little things we do add up, and the solutions, they probably sound a little bit familiar.
What happens on land ends up in the ocean. Making sure that you're trying to be as eco-friendly with your practices and your consumerism as possible. Single-use anything, be it paper or plastic, is just not the answer. And I think that's really what's changed human society is the advent of fast-paced and single-use.
Don't be overwhelmed if you're looking around being like, where do I even begin? Just pick one thing a week. That's all it is. Over time, you'll look back and add those changes up, and it'll make such a difference.
So, what can we do? Act locally, think globally. And I'm a firm believer in that. I drive a hybrid car. My kids drive hybrid cars. You know, we try to have as green a footprint as we possibly can. We try not to waste. We try to make good decisions on the things that we buy and what we eat. We try not to pollute. We try not to use plastics. I mean, we do the things that we can do, and those are all important.
Those daily choices can have a huge impact on the planet. All of that reduction of stress will translate to a reduction of stress on the coral reefs and will make them better able to both withstand the threat of stony coral tissue loss disease, but also recover from the threat of stony coral tissue loss disease.
I think it's really important for us all to understand that it is not ever going to be one organization that can save the ocean. It's never going to be one organization that can do all of the work. This issue is way too large for it to ever be just one of us. It has to be all of us working together.
Oh, I don't worry about Jason. I worried about Jason once. We're not a...
Really, with stony coral tissue loss disease looming, seeing that this is not the first disease corals have ever gotten, it's not the last disease corals are ever going to get, that we need to take a rescue to reef approach. We are one of a handful of organizations considered an official land-based nursery. We hold those rescue corals, so we are gene banking, we get to hold them. And then kind of the second piece that we work on is settling babies and getting to a place where they can grow. Coral nursery. We have a coral nursery. So if you can think of it like any other baby nursery, that's what we do. We have a nursery. What we're able to do is go put these babies out to certain areas where there's not a lot of coral coverage for restoration purposes. We're literally working to actively regrowing our reef. We need to keep restoring the ocean, so we need to keep putting the babies out in the ocean. We really want to see reefs fully restored in Florida and across the Caribbean. Each of us have to play a part in this bigger picture so that our reefs can genuinely be restored. And that is the bigger future of coral restoration around the globe. The vegan will say it's meat, we're all eating too much meat. Or the person that drives the electric car, it's toxic fumes, it's greenhouse gases, global warming, climate change, microplastics. Everyone has their issue. And what's really interesting when you begin to think about it, all of these things together is what's creating the bigger problems in the ocean. From the largest apex predator down to our foundational creature of coral. What is the connecting factor in all of these things? What's the connection there? It's people. We're causing the problem. It's us. If we're causing the problem, we have to fix it. If we're responsible, it's our job to ask the question, what more can I do? Because it's not even just about being selfish, that if all the reefs go away, we're underwater, or the ecosystems have fallen apart. We're responsible for this amazingly beautiful ocean and nature. We're responsible. And if we broke it, how can we not fix it?
It's made me cry. You're doing good work. At the end of the day, there's not a single solution. The future for our coral will rely on continuing the conversation. Giving back time, money, or resources to organizations that can truly make a difference is a great start. I challenge all of you to take one step today to help live in a world with, rather than a world without coral.
Yeah.